let me ask you, how do you feel when you're watching a YouTube video and all of a sudden an ad comes up? Are you just overjoyed? You're like, oh, thank God, an ad has come up. It is my lucky day. My day has just gotten so much better because this ad has appeared and interrupted my video. Is that how you feel about it? My guess is probably not. Probably, if you're like most people, this is an annoyance. You do not want ads coming up and interrupting your videos. There's a video that you actually want to watch and you don't want it to be interrupted. So just getting this through your head is the first step to being successful at YouTube ads. You just have to understand that nobody actually wants to see your ad, and be honest with yourself about that. It's like you're interrupting people. Nobody wants to see your ad. So once you accept that, now you can figure out, how do you overcome it? Okay, well, nobody wants to see my ad, so what can I do? Well, it just so happens that you have 5 seconds to make your case. A YouTube ad lasts 5 seconds before the skip button appears, and you need to make the case within that 5 seconds that they should continue to watch the video longer than that 5 seconds. The way that you do that is by making it relevant. Use that 5 seconds to make it relevant to the person, and in fact, to make it more interesting to the person than the thing that they were already watching, so that instead of skipping it and going back to the thing they were already watching, now you have transferred their attention to your thing instead of that thing, because you're showing that your thing is more important to them, or more relevant to them. The way that you do that is you call out the exact person. One way to do that, I should say, there are multiple ways to do this, but my favorite way is that you call out the type of person you're talking to and call out either a problem they have or a desire that they have. Hey, are you XYZ type of person, or are you struggling with this? You can say all of that within 5 seconds, and if so, and if that is a painful problem that they would like to get rid of, you might just earn their attention to listen to your solution for how you get rid of it. So lesson number 1 is to make your ad relevant immediately. Get right to the point. Make it relevant within the first 5 seconds. Okay, lesson number 2. Let me ask you again your opinion. How do you feel when you see like highly produced, professional looking ads? Like an ad comes up that has CGI talking animals, and it has a bunch of like nice music, and it's professionally polished, and it has great video editing. Are you just wowed by that ad? You're like, whoa, this ad is so good. I have to go immediately and buy the product right now because the ad is so nicely edited. Again, my guess is probably not. You've probably seen so many professionally edited, professionally recorded ads on your TV and on YouTube and on like every other platform that just does not impress you anymore. In fact, it's kind of it becomes part of the background. It doesn't stand out at all, which stand out is exactly what you want to do when you're advertising. So what I found to work much, much better than being professional is being authentic. So that's lesson number 2. Authentic is better than being professional. If you can actually relate with somebody. If you've seen any of my ads, you know that my ad is usually just like what you're looking at right now. It's just me in front of the camera talking to you about something that is important to you. You're probably going to relate with that a lot better than the corporate looking ad with all the talking animals and the clever little slogans. So authentic, better than professional. Lesson number 3. This has happened to me at least once, where there was an ad that I ran that I thought, this is a really good ad. I'm going to get great performance from this. And after a few days, I look at the performance and it's just abysmal. Like I'm getting like basically no leads, no sales from it. And like the performance just sucks. And I think, okay, well, like what's going on here? Why is it that this performance is so bad? And so I dig into the analytics, and what I find is that it's not that the ad was bad at all. It's that the ad was showing, almost all of the ad impressions were not showing on YouTube. They were showing on what Google calls the Google Display Network, which is essentially a whole bunch of random websites that are running Google ads that can have video ads. And what was happening is that the inventory, that is like the available ad impressions on the display network, are cheaper than the ad impressions on actual YouTube. And so because it was cheaper, it was pushing all of my impressions to the stupid display network instead of to YouTube. So lesson number 3 is to always turn off the darn display network. And they've changed how you do that over the years, but there's always been some way that you can say, no, I only want my ads showing on YouTube. I do not want them on the display network. I've never, in my entire 7 years of running YouTube ads, I have never seen the display ad network actually get good results. You want your ads on actual YouTube, not on the display network. Okay, lesson number 4. There is a setting that you can choose in your YouTube ads that essentially tells the platform, after you, let's say you set up your targeting and you set up the perfect audience of this is the type of person that's going to be interested in my product and is going to be able to pay for it and is living in the right place, et cetera, et cetera. You can go ahead and set a setting that claims to get you better results, but what you're actually doing is you're telling the algorithm, you can just ignore everything I just told you about who to show my ads to and just do whatever you want. Do whatever you think will get the cheapest clicks or the cheapest leads. And it will, and if you do this, then all of your audience targeting, it's just gonna ignore that completely. The setting is called optimized targeting. And if you have optimized targeting on, then it's just going to find you whoever is the cheapest. This is kind of a common theme that you're probably going to hear throughout this, is that the algorithm is that the YouTube ads is based on an AI algorithm. It's a machine learning algorithm where it's essentially looking for patterns and seeing, okay, this type of person gets a cheaper lead than this type of person, or this type of person's more likely to click than this type of person. And it's optimizing for whatever you tell it to optimize for. So if you optimize for clicks, it's going to try to get you the cheapest cost per click. If you optimize for leads, it's going to get you the cheapest cost per lead. If you optimize for booked calls, it's going to try to get you the cheapest cost per booked call, etc. The issue here, though, is that cheap is not always good. The cheapest is not always the best. In a lot of cases, it's the opposite. So especially if you want to set an income range of people that you're trying to target. Like if you have a high ticket product, you probably want to sell it to people that can actually pay a high ticket price. And so you set like, oh, I want to show my ads to the top 30% income, for example. And it will do that unless you click on optimized targeting. Then it will completely ignore that and it will show it to completely almost only poor people. Why? Because poor people are cheaper. They're cheaper leads. So, and they're cheaper clicks. So it's going to show it to the cheapest people, not the best people. So unless you don't care about that and you're actually trying to target the poorest people, which there are some cases where that's what you want. Well, unless that's the case, if that's the case, then sure, optimized targeting might work great for you, but for anybody else, turn off optimized targeting. So that's lesson number 4. Lesson number 5. When I work with clients where I'm actually creating their videos for them and running their videos for them, which by the way, that's what I do. So if you would like to utilize my 7 years of experience, instead of trying to learn it all for yourself, you'd like me to just build out everything for you or to personally consult you on how to do it yourself so that you avoid all of those pitfalls along the way, I'll put a link in the description where you can apply to work with me. But anyway, so I have clients a lot of times that will look at one of the ads that I created for them. And generally the ads I create are anywhere from like 1.5 to 3 minutes. They'll look at that and say, that's super long. That's never going to work. Well, whenever I get that, my favorite thing to show them is there's this company called Mind Valley that offers this spiritual coaching product, and they advertise heavily on YouTube. their best performing ad that they have spent literally millions of dollars on, it's printing money for them. They've spent a ton of money on this ad. It is 45 minutes long. 45 minutes. The thing is, on YouTube, there's no penalty for having a longer ad. People are kind of stuck in this mentality from like the TV commercial era. If you run a TV ad, then you're paying for the length. So like a 30-second ad costs twice as much as a 15-second ad, and a 1-minute ad costs twice as much as a 30-second ad, or maybe not exactly twice as much, but a lot more. Like because TV space is limited. YouTube doesn't work like that. YouTube space is unlimited. So whether you run an ad that's 30 seconds or you run an ad that's 45 minutes, you're literally paying exactly the same for either one, because you're not paying per length of watch time, you're paying per impression, which is something we're going to get into later in this video. But there's zero penalty for making a longer ad, but there is, the more that you can include in an ad that is persuasive, you might as well put it in, right? So if you can talk about more of the benefits, you can talk about more of how it's different than everything else. You can talk about more about why they should take action now rather than waiting until next week. If you can talk about like why the price is justified, you can talk about here are all the great testimonials and the client success stories. You might as well just put that all in there. And if you're worried about people's attention spans, it's like, oh, well, people are not going to watch a 3-minute ad. Well, all you have to do then is put a call to action earlier in the ad, and then you keep going. So you put a call to action after 1 minute, let's say. So if you're interested, click the link below and do whatever thing. And then you start pitching again. You say, and by the way, here's Johnny who tried this thing, and look at what results he's got. And here's why you should do it today. So if you're interested, go ahead and click the link, and then you can keep doing that pretty much as you want, like as many times as you want. So you might as well make your ad longer. It actually works better that way. So that's the lesson. Make the ad as long as it needs to be to incorporate all the persuasive elements that are actually going to help it to convert better. Okay, lesson number 6. A lot of people think that with YouTube ads, you only have to pay if the person watches at least 30 seconds. This is something that used to be true, but it ain't true anymore, and it hasn't been true for years. It's way out of date. The way that YouTube ads cost works is it's cost per impressions, and you'll see that on your ads dashboard as CPM, which is technically cost per 1,000 impressions. A cost per impression is like a penny. It's very, very cheap. That's why they aggregate it into cost per 1,000 impressions. And it's essentially, you pay per person who sees the ad. It doesn't matter if they skip it immediately, or it doesn't matter if it's a 45-minute ad and they watch all 45 minutes. Both of those are going to charge exactly the same amount because both of those are one impression. So that's how that works, which of course begs the question, and this is lesson number 7, how much does an impression cost? Well, the truth is there's no fixed price tag. It's not like, oh, it's 3 cents per impression across the board and like it never changes. It's constantly variable because it's based on an auction. You are essentially competing with everybody else who is advertising on YouTube, targeting the same person as you. And so every time that there's a slot, an opportunity to show a YouTube ad, you are competing with everybody else who would also like that particular opportunity, which means that particular person, right? Because your audience is not necessarily going to be the same as everybody else's audience. What that means in practice is that your ad cost, your CPM, your cost per impression, is based on supply and demand. It's based on how much supply is there, that is how many impressions are available, how many ad slots are available, and the demand is how many other advertisers are also competing for that ad slot. So if you have a whole bunch of advertisers are competing for the same small number of people, then it's going to be expensive. Whereas if you have a lot of people are watching videos and there's very little competition, there's few advertisers that are chasing these people, then it's going to be cheap, right? I mean, it's kind of like anything else. If you didn't pay attention in high school economics class and you didn't learn about this, it's like if you have something like a diamond that there's very few of them relatively in the world and there's a lot of people that want them, it's going to be pretty expensive. On the other hand, if you have air or water, let's use the water as an example. Well, everybody wants water, but there's also a lot of it, right? The demand is high and the supply is high, but because the supply is really, really high, it means that water is cheap. Whereas if you have something like garbage, well, garbage, there's a lot of garbage and there's not a lot of people that really want garbage. So the supply is high, the demand is pretty much zero. And so garbage is so cheap that it's actually negative. You actually have to pay somebody to take your garbage, right? So that's supply and demand. It's the same thing with ads. If you're competing with a lot of advertisers for a very desirable demographic of people, then that's going to be more expensive. And then if there's very few other advertisers if there's a big demographic of people that nobody wants, then that's going to be cheaper, which is why advertising to people who don't have money is cheaper, because most advertisers don't really want to advertise to people who don't have money, because people who don't have money don't buy stuff. Okay, lesson number 8. Do you know the story of the first ever Bitcoin transaction? The first ever purchase with Bitcoin was somebody bought 2 pizzas for 10,000 Bitcoin. Now, I bet that person is kicking himself today because that 10,000 Bitcoin is now worth like $100 million or something crazy like that. But what essentially that is a very extreme example of an undervalued asset. The guy that sold the pizza, you could consider it that he bought the Bitcoin with his pizza. So he gave like $20 or $30 worth of pizza in return for 10,000 Bitcoins. What he did was bought a very undervalued asset. He bought for $30 worth of pizza something that would eventually be worth $100 million. And it kind of goes back to this whole supply and demand thing. But the lesson is that YouTube ads are a very undervalued asset. Now, maybe not quite as dramatically as like 10,000 Bitcoin for $30 worth of pizza, but everything that you're trying to do when you invest is you're trying to buy the undervalued assets, buy the things that are cheaper than they should be. YouTube ads are not very well used by businesses. Like most industries haven't even figured out they exist hardly. They're not using them. If they are using them, they're using them poorly. They haven't really figured out how to use them well. So at this point in time, if you get into YouTube ads, the cost that you're paying to show the ads is significantly less than it's actually worth. It's like buying that Bitcoin for $30 worth of pizza. And it's probably going to go up. That's why people that are advertising on YouTube, they're spending a certain amount of money in ad spend and they're making 3x, 5x, 10x, 20x returns, because that attention that they are essentially buying from YouTube is worth way more than they're actually paying for it. So that's lesson number 8, is that YouTube ads are a undervalued asset that very few companies and very few industries even are using to anywhere near their full potential. Okay, lesson number 9. Have you ever had the experience where you start a new YouTube account, or maybe you just log in to YouTube you're not logged into your actual YouTube account, and so it doesn't know anything about you, and it just shows some like general interest videos. That's the suggestions that it gives you. So it gives you just like basic mass market entertainment stuff. So it's like Mr. Beast and all sorts of like stupid stuff. But then when you start using it more, it starts to see the patterns of what kind of stuff that you're interested in. And it's not just YouTube that does that. You probably notice like Amazon does that. If you buy stuff from Amazon, it gets smart about giving you suggestions of what you're going to want next. Or Netflix, right? If you watch a few shows on Netflix, it gets an idea of what type of shows that you like or what type of movies that you like. And it recommends things based on that. Well, this is a machine learning algorithm. This is an AI algorithm that is creating these recommendations based on the patterns that it is recognizing here. And to toot my own horn a little bit here, I think I'm probably the only, I'm definitely the only ad expert that I've ever seen who has actually built an AI algorithm from scratch. I'm probably a bigger nerd than any of these other guys, at least in that I've actually like coded these AI algorithms, so I understand how they work really, really well. Now, the YouTube ads algorithm works the same way, but what it's doing is that at the beginning, when you run a new ad, it's just kind of guessing at who is going to be interested. It doesn't really know yet. So it's going to look for patterns. Just like when you start the new YouTube channel, it's just giving you whatever is the most popular in general videos on YouTube. It's not specific to you, but as it gets more data, it starts recommending things that are specific to your tastes and your interests. Well, the ad platform's the same way. It'll start by just recommending to everybody within the parameters that you've set, right? Within the audience that you've told it to target. But it gets smarter as time goes on, and it starts learning what people, what types of people, what types of videos, what times of the day, what devices, etc., are more likely to respond positively to this ad and what people are not. And again, this is within the constraints that you've given it, because if you've given it a constraints that of like, I want people within this demographic and with this interest, there may be 100 million people that fit that description, or maybe there's 10 million people that fit that description. Well, among that 10 million people, there's going to be certain pockets of those people that respond better than others. And what the algorithm does is it figures that out over time. The lesson here is to recognize that when you start the ad, it hasn't figured out the patterns yet, but as you keep running the ad, it gets smarter and smarter and smarter about figuring out those patterns. Lesson number 10. Let's say that you own a Lamborghini dealership and you would like to get more people to buy Lamborghinis. One strategy that you could take, let's say that you decide, well, what we're going to do is we're going to run ads to the whole world, like to everybody, and we're going to say, hey, come into our Lamborghini dealership and we're going to let you take a test drive. And after your test drive, we're going to give you a free lunch and a massage. What's going to happen? How well is that ad going to work? Well, here's what I think is going to happen. I've never actually tried this, but you can kind of guess. What's going to happen is you're going to get a massive flood of people that want to take a test drive of a Lamborghini and want a free lunch and want a massage. So in terms of attracting people, it's going to be very successful. Now, the question is, how many of those people are actually able and willing to buy a Lamborghini? And the answer is, of course, probably very, very few. And you're going to waste your time on like thousands of tire kickers, because that test driving a Lamborghini and getting a free lunch and getting a massage are pretty much attractive to everyone. They're not just attractive to the people that you want. So the lesson here is that you don't want to attract everyone. You don't want your ads to be attractive to people that you do not want. You want them to attract the people that you do want and push away the people that you don't want. Like actively push them away. And this is something that is pretty difficult in certain industries. Like it's hard to figure out how to do this. And the main way that you want to do this is with the messaging. So for example, let's say that you're advertising a consulting service where you want to do consulting for businesses that are making, let's say, $1 to $2 million a year, and you would like to help them. Your promise is that you can help them get to $10 million a year. Well, if you just run an ad saying, hey, do you want your business to make $10 million a year? I can help you. Click below and book a call with me. The problem there is going to be that the people that are already making $1 to $2 million a year are going to be interested, but there's a heck of a lot more people that are making $0 per year they're trying to sell Herbalife or something. They have no idea what they're doing, and they don't have any money to spend. They work at freaking McDonald's and they have some business idea they're trying to do on their spare time. You're going to get your calendar completely full of those people. And not only that, but the algorithm is going to start learning that those people, there are a lot of them, they're easy to reach, they're cheap leads. And so at a certain point, that's the only person that you're going to get. It's just a bunch of people like that. So what you have to do is you have to figure out a way to make it so that it's still attractive to the right people, but unattractive to the wrong people. And so you could have a message saying something like, if you want to get to $10 million a year in your business, what you have to do is the complete opposite of what you did to get to 1 million. And you could even expound on this, because if you use these, let's say the strategies that you use to get to 1 million were perfect for getting to 1 million, but they will hold you back. They will not let you get to 10 million. And on the flip side, the strategies that you need to get from 1 million to 10 million will never work if you haven't hit 1 million before. So you see what I did there? I disqualified. I said, this will not work for you if you're not making at least $1 million. So I'm pushing away the people that I don't want, the people that are not going to have the amount of money to be able to afford my offer. So you really got to do that in your messaging. You can do it in the targeting as well, but the messaging is where it's really, really important. And so the lesson is, your messaging has got to repel the wrong people, especially if you have a product or a promise that might be attractive to people that are not actually going to be able to buy from you. Lesson 11. Let me ask you guys, are you psychic? Are you able to read people's minds, or are you a prophet that is able to see into the future? Well, if so, then you can pretty much ignore this lesson. But if not, if you're one of us mere mortals, then what I recommend is that you do not ever assume that any ad is going to work. Either any ad video, any creative, any ad campaign is going to work. Because even if you're super experienced at this, you still are going to get it wrong sometimes. So what do you do about that? Well, the best way statistically is you just test different variations. So when I'm working for a client, I break this rule for myself occasionally. I'll just kind of come up with an idea for an ad. I'll write it out. I'll run it really quick just to see what happens. But for a client, if I'm working with a client, I never do that. What I do is I run a variety of different ads. I will have multiple different ad variations and multiple different targeting variations so that we can throw a bunch of stuff at the wall and see what sticks, essentially. Because even though I have a lot of experience, even though I have a pretty darn good intuition of what's going to work and what's not going to work, I'm not right 100% of the time. But if I will create 3 variations and then 3 variations of the ad, and then I'll run those to 3 different variations of the targeting, well, now I have 9 combinations. So even if my intuition was off on 1 or 2 of those, chances are out of 9, we'll get at least 1 that works, right? And 1 is all you need. If you get 1 that works and the other 8 suck, you turn off the other 8 and you just pump the 1 that works. And that's all you need. You literally just need 1. You don't need to have a whole bunch of different variations that are all working at the same time. And chances are you're going to get a lot more than 1 that works. Actually, sometimes I get all 9 of them that work. So you always want to test different variations. That's lesson number 11. Now, Lesson number 12. I had a friend that was running ads. He was running Facebook ads actually, but this applies either way. It's the same thing whether you're doing Facebook ads or YouTube ads or any other kind of online ad. He was running Facebook ads for a client of his that was a lawyer. And the ads were working well, and then all of a sudden they just stopped working. Like they kept on spending money, but they just got like no leads coming in at all, just from one night to the next. And so he had gone like a week and his ads had just like stopped bringing in leads, and he couldn't figure out for the life of him like what was going on. And he was totally freaking out because it was kind of a hard-nosed client, and he was really worried about disappointing this client. So he gave me a call, and I went through his ads dashboard, and I figured out that, well, okay, it went from like a pretty decent lead flow to zero, like overnight. I thought that sounded like a tech issue. So I just went and like visited his webpage, and the webpage didn't work. Like the landing page that people would go to when they click on the ad, it just stopped working. It was, I think the domain had expired. So the page didn't work. So I'm like, well, there's your problem. The page doesn't work. Now, this is a kind of a dramatic example. I mean, obviously your page has to work, but in addition to your page working, you also want your page to work well. You want your page to be effective. And so the lesson is that a bad landing page can destroy an ad campaign. Even if the ads themselves are perfect, even if the targeting is perfect, it's reaching exactly the people that it should be reaching. If you don't have your landing page dialed in, then none of that matters and you get no results. So one obviously the landing page has to actually be online, but above and beyond that, it has to be compelling by itself to get people to take whatever the next action is, whether that's opting in or whatever. And it has to match with the message in the ads. This is something people get wrong because like sometimes they'll create the ads and then later they'll create the landing page or vice versa. And so the thing that they're promising in the ad is different than the thing that they're promising in the landing page. And it confuses people. And so they click on the ad, they're interested. And then all of a sudden you're promising something different on the landing page and they just leave. Like this is a very common problem. Another thing that I see, and this is really a pro tip, that if you're offering something for free, like you're having people opt in for a free lead magnet, like a free training, free ebook, something like that, the shorter the landing page, the better. I see people mess this up all the time, that they have the ad that goes to a landing page and it's this big, long, elaborate landing page with all these like client testimonials in the story. And here's all the different bullet points of everything that you're going to get in this free training. And here's why you should get the free training now and blah, blah, blah. And this is like big, long sales page to get something for free. And literally 100% of the time, if I see this and I can convince the person to just create a dead simple, dumbed down, short version of the landing page, the short version converts way better than the long version does. Literally, what I have them do, if I can convince them, because this goes so like counter to what most people think, but if they have a long landing page, I'll say, look, all I want is a headline. You can have a subheadline if you want. That's allowed. And then a form. And that's it. So a form being just like, name, email, phone number, submit button. That's it. So like a headline, a subheadline, a form. And that's the whole page. Take out all the testimonials, take out all the explanations, etc. Now, I'm not entirely sure why this works so much better, but my theory is that it just kind of doesn't make sense that, well, I have two theories. One, it doesn't make sense that there would be so much convincing for something that's free. If you're saying, hey, download my free ebook, and then you have this big long page telling them all the reasons they should download the ebook, they're like, wait a minute, why is this person trying so hard to convince me to get this free thing? Must be a catch. Like, I think that's what people are thinking subconsciously. Also, if you're offering the free thing in your ad, then by the time the person clicks on the ad, they already want it. Like, you've already made your case. And so by having all of this extra stuff, people might see that and think, oh, it's almost like homework. It's like, oh, I got to read through all this crap now, and maybe later. Or they see it and they see something they don't like. Like there's something in the ad that says, oh, like Johnny got a result from this, but here's Johnny's picture, and Johnny is younger than me, so it can't work for me because I'm older. Or like people have all these excuses in your head. And so sometimes the more information that you give them, then the more that they're likely to find some excuse to not go through with it. But regardless of what my theories are, my experience is that shorter always works better for a landing page for a free thing. I've literally never seen a single exception to that rule. So that's lesson number 12. Lesson number 13. If you want to get leads from social media, if you want to get clients from social media, you absolutely can. There's a lot of people that do it successfully. But if you think about it, how long, let's say on Instagram, you create an amazing post on Instagram and you get 100,000 views on your reel or whatever. What happens a week later? Where is your reel a week later? The answer is it's dead. Nobody's watching it. Why? Because it's old. It's ancient. It's decrepit in Instagram years. Instagram years is like one day is like 50 years. So nobody cares about your post that is a week old. What that means is that you got to put another one. It's like you got to post every week at minimum, probably every day, probably multiple times a day if you want to use it effectively. Which is cool because, hey, you're getting free leads and you're getting exposure and whatnot. So I'm not knocking it. The problem is it's a heck of a lot of work because you got to keep posting stuff over and over and over again. With YouTube ads, it's actually the exact opposite. A good YouTube ad, if you have a YouTube ad that works, you can run the same ad without changing anything. You can run the same ad for years, literally years. The longest running ad I had ran for 3 years without me changing a thing. And it would probably still be working today if it wasn't for the fact that I just changed my offer. So I couldn't run the same ad because I changed my offer. But if you create a really solid YouTube ad that works, it will continue working, which is very nice compared to, well, obviously compared to social media where stuff has a shelf life of like days, but also compared to other ad platforms like Facebook, where on Facebook you have a term called ad fatigue, that your ad generally stops being effective after a little while because like everybody's seen it. With YouTube, that can happen if you're putting like enormous amounts of money into it, but generally it takes a very, very long time for an ad to fatigue, and in some cases never. Like it literally never happens. So lesson number 13 is a good YouTube ad keeps working for years. Lesson number 14, in the olden days, if you wanted to advertise something, what kind of methods were available to you? When I say the olden days, let's say like the 1960s. What kind of methods were available to you to advertise? Well, you had TV. You could advertise on TV. You could advertise on the radio. You could advertise in a magazine. You could advertise on a billboard. What do all of those things have in common? Well, one thing that they have in common is it's a pretty big upfront commitment. You create, let's say, a TV ad. You create the ad, and then you buy a package of, like, from the television networks for how many times you're going to show the ad. So you're probably looking at least like a $10,000 investment, probably a lot more than that. And then the same thing is true with magazines, with radio, etc. Like you create one ad and you put a whole bunch of money invested into it and you cross your fingers and you hope that it works. Well, thankfully, nowadays with YouTube ads, you don't have to do that at all. In fact, what you can do instead is, like I talked about earlier, you can put a whole bunch of different ads, like a bunch of different variations, and you can put very small budgets on each of the variations. So you can say, my normal protocol here is I will do 9 different ad variations, and I'll put a budget of $5 a day. So it's a total of $45 a day, which is very little, and I can turn it off at any time, right? So what I'm looking for is, do I get the early signals that it's working? So instead of spending $10,000 on one ad, I spend $5 on 9 ads. Give them a few days and say, okay, are people clicking on this ad? If I spent $20 on an ad, let's say, and got 0 clicks, well, that's probably a pretty good indication that this ad sucks, that nobody wants it, that it's not good. So I'm just going to stop spending money on that. Or if I spend, let's say, $50 and I don't get any leads for, let's say, something where getting leads should be fairly cheap. If I spend $50 and I don't get any leads, well, I'm not going to keep spending money on that ad. I'm going to turn it off. So what's happened is that I have lost $50. If I had done a TV spot, or if I bought a billboard, I would have spent $10,000 to learn that ad didn't work. Right? So the lesson is that you want to use small test budgets with the intention of getting data. Before you have the intention ultimately of getting sales, obviously, and making more money than you're putting in. But before that, you want to collect data. You want to see, are people actually responding to this ad? Is it getting clicks? Is it getting leads? If it's not, you already know that the ad doesn't work and you can shut it off before it spends any more of your money. If it does work, if it is getting clicks and it is getting leads, that doesn't necessarily mean it's going to be profitable. Doesn't mean it's going to get booked calls. Doesn't mean it's going to get sales. But it means that you can leave it on for a little longer to see, okay, how much do I have to spend before I get a booked call? How much do I have to spend before I get a sale? So you can look for the data long before you look for the overall results. That's the smartest way to do it, and the way that you're going to save the most money and have the highest chances of success. Now, final lesson, lesson 15. Who do you think that Google, and Google owns YouTube, right? So the YouTube ads dashboard is the same as the Google ads dashboard. Who do you think that Google really wants as clients? Notice that when you watch ads on YouTube, you probably notice sometimes that you get ads from small business owners, from small creators like me, and probably like you. But other times you get these big corporate companies. You get like Pepsi and Burger King and Firestone and Ford, and like all of these companies are also advertising on YouTube. Which of those do you think Google wants more as a client? Do you think they want you, or do you think they want Burger King? The answer, of course, is Burger King. They are mostly focused on the big corporate clients. Now, that doesn't mean they won't take your money. It doesn't mean that you can't advertise on YouTube. It just means that you are not their focus. And so understanding that gives you a big advantage, because it makes you realize that a lot of their recommendations, a lot of the way the system is set up is not meant for you. And so if you want to be successful for your business, you have to do it in your own way. You got to do it in a way that is different from the way that they're pushing on you. So you got to consider too, like, how does your business differ from the big clients? So for example, if you're a coach or a consultant, you're an agency owner, something like that, chances are when you show somebody a YouTube ad, you're not just trying to like spread your reputation. You actually want the person to take an action, that you want them to click and to sign up for your thing. You want them to book a call. You want them to buy your course. You want them to do something right then and there, because if they don't do it right then and there, they're probably never going to, right? So on the other hand, let's say that you're Pepsi. What does Pepsi want? You see an ad for Pepsi. Are you going to click the link and go to the Pepsi website and order a Pepsi for them to send you through the mail so you get a Pepsi tomorrow in a package? No, it doesn't work that way. What they're hoping is that they will burn their brand image into your head so that next time you're at the grocery store and you see here's a case of Coke and here's a case of Pepsi, you're going to choose the Pepsi instead of the Coke. This is called branding. They're building their brand. Whereas what we do, we want somebody to take action right now and like click on the link and then sign up for the thing or whatever. That's called direct response. So direct response is obviously a much better strategy for us, but it's not a better strategy for Pepsi. On the other hand, Google cares a lot more about getting business from Pepsi than it cares about getting business from us. So essentially all of Google's recommendations, and there's all sorts of recommendations when you go on the ads dashboard, they're going to tell you, oh, you should select this setting, and oh, you should put this much on your budget. Basically, they want you to spend more, and they want you to spend as though you're a big brand that's trying to build your brand reputation. So the lesson is, don't listen to their recommendations. And when they call you, which by the way, they have a team of like so-called marketing experts that are going to guide you in setting up your ads. They're going to be people calling you that are going to be making recommendations. Every once in a while, they come up with something that's actually helpful, but like the vast majority of the time, they're not. The vast majority of the time, their recommendations suck. And not only are their recommendations not good, but if you follow their recommendations, you will literally destroy your ad campaigns. Like they will not perform. Remember earlier I was talking about that optimized targeting? Well, they will always recommend that you do optimized targeting. Like 100% of the time, they always recommend that. And yet, if you're trying to reach people that aren't like the poorest people in the world, then that's going to backfire on you. It's going to just completely ruin your ad effectiveness. So don't ever listen to Google's recommendations, or if you do, just use your critical thinking. Think like, just because they're recommending it does not mean that it's going to work for my business. So that's it, the 15 biggest lessons. If you would like help with this, if you would like me to personally work with you and or do the whole thing for you, then I'll put a link in the description where you can apply and book a call with me or a member of my team, and we'll see if it's a fit and tell you all the details. And if you want to go more in detail on any of these subjects, then check out my channel, subscribe, look at some of the other videos I've got, because I got a lot of deep dives into these topics and a lot of tutorials on how to run YouTube ads in a way that's going to get you the best possible results. So thank you for watching. I'll see you in the next one.